Mhm.
Hey guys, it's Thibaut again for the episode number 5 already of Voices of Support. And today I'm really excited because I have Kate or Kateryna with me that's joining me. And thanks for joining me today. I think it's a super interesting story that we'll share. Especially, I think, Kate, you created almost from scratch a customer support department without experience. So that was interesting in the pitch that you shared with me. And I think a lot of people will be interested about that. So maybe before jumping into a bit more question, I think it's good for you to present yourself, tell us a little bit where you come from, how you started in customer support. And yeah,
Yeah.
floor is yours. So tell us a bit more about your story.
Okay. Thank you, Thibaut. Really nice to be here. I will try to be brief, but yeah, I love to tell stories, so I'm sorry if I go too far in the details and some side stories, but that's my style. I am in customer support for 10 years, I guess already 11, I can say. And yeah, I started unusually my path because I started as a head of support. I will tell about that in detail for sure. But what I can tell, I've worked with different companies, different industries, so e-commerce, gambling, outsource, and veterinary field. So which helped me to transform my experience into some other like newer and higher level of my expertise, and I created my company Katico. So with my best friend Kateryna as well, I'm dealing with business analysis and building relationship with customers and giving expertise in support field, and she is on analytical and technical implementation side. So we help companies to build support systems to help their, well, first we started with enterprises, so to help employees because they're customers for the company in a way. So to help build the support system where they have knowledge base to find answers and where they can easily request something or report about the issue or ask a question, and we could then build those great workflows that will help people on the other side, agents, to provide that support. So it's been fun, and we're now also helping startups and scale ups to like switch from everybody does everything to actually building the structure more and their knowledge base and so on. So it's been fun. And yeah, definitely wouldn't be able to do it without my support experience.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's always helping a lot to put that into play and to use that perspective of what we have seen in the front lines. But I think compared to a lot of people I've discussed with, and also my own experience, I started as an agent, then become a trainer, and then a team lead, and so on and so on and so on. You started from the top technically, so can you tell us a little bit from that?
Yeah, well, it happened. I still believe that it happened by accident, honestly, because I was office manager in an e-commerce company. They had like online shops in different languages, and I combined several roles. So I helped project manager. I worked with translators, with IT team also. I helped them to write texts for the products and everything. And at some point, just had access to the orders and saw some. Well, I was interested, and I replied to all those negative feedbacks that were coming in. And anyway, and yeah, they were thinking about starting their own like opening the call center for themselves. They used some vendors before that, and it just happened that yeah, they just person who was project manager for that thing didn't manage, and they just let him go. And I already like helped to hire a couple of agents. We tried to figure out what the process is gonna be, and we just like, okay, we just keep going, you know. And at some point they're just like, well, you as a head of support, and I'm like, okay, that's news. And I'm just like, and then, okay, then I guess I'm head of support. I didn't know anything. They also, so I was figuring it out with my team. And I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Ukraine, where I'm from, and my first experience was there, it's usually students who work as support agents, like some extra income while they're still studying. And so it was super fun. We had yeah, had freedom to experiment and build our processes, and also my team in that specific company had to deal with fraud check. So more of our work was this framework to check all the people who try to order things and to make sure we don't let like some fraudulent activity going on. And of course, we dealt with incoming calls, emails. Thank God, no chats at that time. I think it would be crazy. But yeah, and I don't know. My team just grew, and we had supervisors, and it was like 24/7 support. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot because first I tried to pick from like the style of leadership from my bosses. It was quite judgmental, a bit toxic, but I learned my ways. I listened to my team, and at some point just yeah realized that giving people knowledge of the processes and policies and giving them freedom to make their own decisions and to build like more, it's the best policy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I really enjoyed helping people to develop in different areas. I remember the girl who we asked to actually do some HR things, then pursued that career, and she's still like head of HR, well, in some other company already. But yeah, I'm just very happy when such things happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's part of being a manager, but that's interesting. So, how did you, because you were saying just now, like your management was maybe a bit toxic, so you were trying to learn from them, but at the same moment didn't maybe ring or didn't really align with your way of seeing things? Like, how did you approach learning? Like, was it something you did solo? You were mentioning that you learned also with your team, but did you have anyone that you were relying on, maybe outside of the company, that could help you with this? Or because we discussed also about mentoring just before the podcast we
Yeah.
started. So was it something that you had back then, or something that maybe you would have done if you were to get back into this situation today to find a mentor or something? How do you see that?
Actually, good question. I didn't have anybody except of my team to
Mm-hmm.
reflect on what's working and what doesn't, and I really listen to them. So I'm happy that I'm that kind of person that I can stop and like, wait a minute, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Let's see. So I was really accepting to the feedback because I mean, if people are not comfortable working with you, like you won't get any results.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think if I had a mentor at that time, that would help me to understand things better. And again, I had no sources to know
Mm-hmm.
how what good looks like.
Yeah.
So I just figured it out myself. At that time, it was just like somehow, yeah, it was just so much work. You couldn't
Yeah.
just even think about actually going and learn something somewhere else. But yeah,
Always in the tunnel, always in the
mentor,
tunnel of learning and seeing what things are doing. Startup kind of setup. Yeah.
yeah. So it would be nice to have mentor for sure. But yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I actually had experience as well, like raising from support agent back to head of support.
Yeah.
Because since I didn't have experience of like going to interviews, like to apply for that head of support job, and I was so inspired by the environment I created, so I just only talked like, oh, I just love to make everyone comfortable. Like I had that kind of talks. Usually they expect you to talk numbers and like
Mhm.
processes wherever. I'm like, oh, but it's so amazing. So anyway,
Yeah.
I struggled, and then I thought like, okay, I can just start over and see how it is to be agent, and that's what I did. So I've worked in outsource
Hmm.
company as agent, then became supervisor, and then when I left the company, I applied for head of support in gambling, and
Hmm.
had a couple of interesting experience there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting because I think that like the hardest thing to not jump into, okay, so let's see, like you're actually analyzing, improving processes from the get-go. No, you are new person. You need to understand how it works, accept it, appreciate all the training and how people are actually doing their job
Hmm.
without jumping into, okay, so I'm head of support, so let me just make it better. So it was fun from that perspective for sure.
And did it change anything, like from your view, like as an agent, like looking
Oh,
at the people that were also your managers, leaders, like did it change anything in the way you were
Yeah,
You.
it definitely did. I understood the role of agent more and what my team in previous company had to deal with. I got more understanding, and
Mhm.
in my future experiences as a leader I did much better job of like being a leader and creating environment for especially for people to understand what's going on, how things work, and to be able to bring feedback and actually work together on improvements. Still, first time it wasn't that good, but I don't know, it just helped me to understand what people are dealing with and be less judgmental, I think, and expect certain things that actually don't matter much. Because
Mhm.
in reality, work should be done. If they follow like the policies and the work is done, it doesn't like super small details don't matter. You need to trust people more and just, yeah, I don't know. There are so many ways of doing
Yeah.
things, and I
Uh,
think I became more open to those many ways instead of trying to put people in specific framework. I guess
yeah.
that's how I would call
So
it.
how did you approach that? Because like let's say you are back again to the head position and so on, but I think for me that's where the onboarding of newcomers is so important with the training and so on. It's not only about the technical knowledge or the knowledge of the product and so
Yeah.
on, but it's also about soft skills and how did you apply those things that you saw and that basically became more clear from your experience as an agent. How did you apply that in your roles after as a head on this?
That's a good question. Let me remember how it was before. Well, I think at those times it was still like this classic when you just go through the basics. You just make
Mm-hmm.
sure people have easy access to the information, and they can ask you at any time. And then like the classic old school way of doing it, just so here
Yeah.
are the things, did you understand? Okay, let's go to tickets. But for example, in my experience with outsource company, there was a person who first like checked my replies for some
Mm-hmm.
time before I could actually
Yeah.
like be independent in it, and it takes a lot of time. I just, well, in my gambling experience in my gambling experience sounds weird, but like experience
Yeah.
working for gambling companies.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had this sort of checklist like for agents not to forget how what is the structure of their work with
Mm-hmm.
ticket, so what things they need to do, so it helped them to not forget the
Mm-hmm.
sequence of actions, and they had access to information, so it really helped. But
Yeah.
of course, there were some hiccups. But I mean, I became more chilled at that time. I think it was like 5 years ago. And I'm like, listen, any mistake can be fixed. Don't
Mm-hmm.
be afraid. Like, well, and actually, funny story, we had one guy on our team who never made mistakes. And when he first time did, we just opened champagne and just were laughing about it, like, oh my God, he's not an android, he's a
Yeah.
human. Well, it
Yeah.
was just internal joke, but yeah, I think it's important for leader to not put too much pressure on a person, because there will be mistakes. You cannot make it like perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
you need to help your team to be able to find ways to fix things, and it comes with knowledge of the processes, policies,
Yeah.
who is responsible for which areas of business. So if something happens, you need to know where to go, who to ask, and just fix it, because at the end of the day, like, anything can be fixed, and if it cannot, there are still ways to somehow soften the situation. I don't know, it worked for me with
Yeah, yeah, for
the
sure.
kind of
And it's
customer.
also depends. I mean, it was another time, like 5 years ago is also different than the tools that we have today. Like I've done the same. Like my training when back then in 2015 as an agent was 1 month of slides and then reading stuff and then shadowing agents, annoying them on their shifts and all this kind of thing. But I realized that I was not ready on my first call because it took me 2 hours to solve something that should have taken me like 5 minutes. But it's just because I was so stressed, not sure about where to find things and so on. So That's why what we do at SmartFlow is really we need to give a sandbox to those agents because yes, making a mistake is part of the process, is part of the learning, but we need to make them. It needs to be easy for them to make a mistake also because you are scared to make a mistake with a real customer. And I think if you do it in a sandbox kind of thing, a simulation, it's easier to say, okay, if I make mistake, it's not the end of the world. I will be coached. My manager hopefully is well intended and will help me to develop. So that's my approach to that.
I
But yeah,
totally
sorry, go
get
ahead.
it. Yeah, yeah, I'm just listening to you and like this is I think the best way to train. And with last project, I tried to create something like this, but without I think with AI now it's much better because it can actually evaluate things and like flag what's wrong and so on. But like I also like using the history of previous tickets that company had recreated like this scenarios so agents could actually, and it was for the first tier, so they just had
Mm-hmm.
to analyze the request to tell me what the situation and provide a reply and tell me what they're gonna do next. And it really worked. Like they had this training for a couple of weeks. And when they were working with tickets, they were already in context of what
Yeah.
typically happens. Well, of course, it took time to navigate the system, like get used to where everything goes, but it definitely was much easier than they would just be reading aimlessly previous
Yeah.
tickets by agents or shadowing anyone. So that was kind of manual thing.
Yeah.
Um, your what you're building is really awesome and definitely, in my opinion, is the best way to prepare agent for their work. And like you said, to give them sandbox to make those mistakes and feel less pressure when they start working with real customers.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks for that. I have a question. Gambling. I don't know this industry, but from the outside, it feels like it might be a difficult industry to make customer support in because you mentioned fraudsters. Like, I guess there's a lot of money involved. Also, sometimes things happening. So, how does it look inside? Like, is it a difficult industry? Have you seen some weird things happening? Like, how is it to make some customer support there?
Well, it's a lot usually.
Yeah.
Well, um, well, support team they don't handle fraud check. Usually
Okay.
in gambling they have a separate team, payment team that deals with
Hmm.
documents, like and checking all the other things to make sure that player actually did everything required to win the money that they want to withdraw and everything. Support takes like the hit of any kind of emotion that player has.
Hmm.
So, just I guess it requires a lot of empathy and positive attitude because people are playing games and they can get frustrated.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess it's just that. Well, I don't know. I had a couple of, because even being head of support, I still took chats and helped the team when there was flow of chats. So it's just fun. I think that the challenge in this industry, especially when, like in my case, we worked for the platform, like the company has their own platform and they do this white label casinos and they have several clients and projects there that, and I think every support team in SaaS experience it when tech team does something and they
Hmm.
don't tell support team and it breaks the flow.
Yeah.
And sometimes like especially there is a request to make something more secure and they, I don't know, remove the button important one, like, and payment team doesn't have access and they cannot do their work and everything stops and then you need to go through several levels of approval to finally get it back. So I guess
Hmm.
that's the most frustrating thing. And
Yeah.
players, I mean, they're just people. Sometimes are frustrated, sometimes inappropriate, but there are things too.
Yeah,
Like
that's the thing. I think the emotions. That's annoying when sometimes customer forget that as agents we are also humans, but that's part of managing the conversation. But
yeah,
that's
yeah. So it's more like supporting and providing correct information and just not taking it personally. And there are so many chats usually when you work for a casino, so you don't even remember those people unless
yeah.
they're like um like big clients who come every day. And we had so many funny stories, like players who knew when the shift changes from morning to like from day to night shift, and they specifically called before that time, and you had to sit on the phone with them, and they're just like chilling knowing that you cannot hang up.
Yeah. Okay.
uh, just
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had our characters like favorite and not so favorite.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think it's always the same. All have the ones that we like to be on the phone with, and the ones that we know it's going to be a long call. I remember some of them.
Yeah,
I
we
think
all.
fast forward. Yeah, I think fast forward. Like we had. Okay, so you started a bit different than other people in the industry, but funnily enough, now we are kind of on a similar path because you were head of customer support, and now you are CEO of a company technically. What was the trigger that made you like decide, okay, now I'm done with being an head of or something, being an employee, and I want to build something? What was the trigger, like the transition?
Well, actually, I managed to build something really awesome at my last job, like the workflow of how to select software and how to go through this whole path from, like, I don't know, analyzing requirements, like selecting, setting it up, and then building and improving. And it's just that company didn't see a value in doing projects like that anymore. They just
Mhm.
changed the business model to completely different. And I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to develop the idea I got because it was not exactly what is required. I just came up with it and it became even better solution to whatever they had in mind. And I started thinking like, yeah, I want to continue doing this, and just yeah, started thinking about it, and was just lucky enough to actually reach out to my mentor from this job, who at that time already left, like asking him for advice, like because he believed in my idea and said you can sell it. And I'm like, and so we had a chat, and he had actually, I can like introduce you to someone, and that's how it started. And actually, I again, not having previous experience, learn how to um, register company, how do negotiations with a big client, and how long it takes, and all the contracts, invoices, all the stages of finally getting to what I'm used to do, the things that I didn't have experience with while being just employee, and just getting project on my table. I finally found out how it all works from the very beginning. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm really proud of myself that I managed. I didn't expect that. I'm just like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should try. And then I'm like, okay, we're doing this. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
That's
not? And that's the attitude I have to everything. Like, okay, it looks like we're doing it.
yeah.
And
That's a positive attitude, and fulfilling also when you manage to make a success out of it. So that's great.
yeah.
Uh, and yeah, with Katico, so you're basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but helping companies to fix their support systems to make it really simple.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you see a lot of companies, a mistake that you see a lot of companies doing currently? Like, is it something that you see really common with the companies that you work with?
Well, we work with different types of companies like
Mm.
enterprise and this scale ups.
Yeah.
But well, let me think. I think the biggest mistake is that they just see it, okay, we just need help desk, like for, answering those questions, whatever. But actually, it's a part of ecosystem, and you need to look at it from like different perspective. It's not just some isolated tool. It
Mm.
has to be part of your processes. You need to see what is connected. And also, what I'm always trying to remind my clients, that we do it not only for customers but also for your agents, because they
Mm.
won't be able to provide this amazing support if it's like hard to use the system, or you don't hear them. and they have to, I don't know, use 2 3 tools to do something very simple. It's frustrating. So one of my biggest goals is to make it simple for people who actually resolve those requests, and
Yeah.
especially in enterprise scenario. I mean, there are so many, when there are like approvals involved, like some integrations with other systems, so you can keep everything in one place. So I guess, yeah, the main mistake that I see is that they don't see the full picture, and that's like where I come in and like say help them to see it and to find out. Well, I like it the most to find the connections and just see the whole puzzle built in like solid picture, and like this is how it is, and they're just like actually yes, and I'm like okay, now I know what to do. Just
Great. Okay, that's interesting. Those challenges raise sound some bell. Like I remember having some issues like this also in my past. So that's interesting. I think we are almost on time there. So I just have one final question. You have been an agent, manager slash leader, as a head of, and so on. Now you are a founder. Out of all those roles that you got, like which one taught you the most, like about yourself? Is there one of those roles where you feel like I discovered myself, I discovered something about me and what I want to do?
wow, well, that's a tough one. Well, the experience I like that comes up to my mind at the moment, I think it's the second time I got to be head of support, but like starting from agent and going through all the
Yeah.
experiences, having time to reflect, and just with all the knowledge and perception of different roles in the team, I was able to create the environment that I wanted, where
Yeah.
everybody know their value, they know what's required of them, they have freedom, and at the same time they feel accountable for the job they do, and they know how it's connected with everything else in the company. So that's how basically they feel that value, and I could develop people into bigger roles. So that's where I was finally happy with myself. I'm like, yeah, that's my leadership style. I'll continue doing this finally. And actually, one of those girls who worked with me started as agent. I think it was like 7 years ago, maybe. She works with me. She's our knowledge manager, and I just discovered the talent of how awesomely she structures the information. Like, do you want to try as a tech writer? And then it just developed further, and now she's enjoying building knowledge bases, and she creates amazing guides how to do those things, by the way. So
Nice. That's a nice skill to have, to be able to spot talents and what they can do well and put them on the right thing. Because that's also the issue I've seen. Sometimes you force or in some way don't lead the right people in the right place, and then of course they're not going to perform. So that's an issue.
yeah, and I think the extra skill we leaders need when working as employees, also to know how to make that happen, like when we can actually promote people or present new roles. So management is like, yeah, sure, let's do that. I think that's a separate skill that we have
That's
some
okay. Yeah, it's fine.
noises. But yeah, I think that's a separate skill that we all leaders have to have, and we have it because, I mean, how else we can grow our teams in environment when we are employees?
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Thanks for the time, Kate. Maybe last thing, if someone is watching this podcast, what do you want them to take away from your story and your experience and what you shared? Is there one thing that you want them to take away?
Wow.
Sorry, I'm asking a deep question because it's
Yeah,
about
yeah,
career
no.
and development, and I think
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of agents being a bit lost sometimes and not knowing where they want to go and so on. So I'm trying to extract those knowledge and insight of people that went through it.
Well, let me think a bit. Well, I know that a lot of agents think that there is only one path for growth, like supervisor, then head of support,
Yeah.
but there are so many opportunities, and just it is useful for work as an agent to be curious and to like really want to know how things work and why, and like all the structure, like how things are interconnected, to be it helps you to better do your job, but also it gives you the view of all other things that make support what it is, and maybe find other opportunities within the team to be valuable, and but not specifically just doing tickets, because yeah, there's so much like data analysis, or
Mm.
just, I don't know, some people get more into like technical part of resolving tickets, like what's behind there, what happens when they escalate tickets to like tech support and everything, and just some people develop in that direction. So I guess, yeah. So from all the words that I just said, I think the main point is just there is much more into support as such than agent, supervisor, head of support.
Mm.
Just be open to knowledge you have around you, and just, yeah,
Yeah,
hear
totally
it.
makes sense. I think that's I can totally agree with that. That's great. Thanks for the time. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Sorry if the questions were a bit deep sometimes, but
No,
I
I
like
like it. I like it.
to know the people a bit better. So I think that's the occasion. Um,
Yep.
for everyone, we'll have, of course, another episode really soon. Maybe Kate will come back at some point. We'll know when we are really successful entrepreneurs or something. We'll see. Maybe we need to make an episode 2 at some point. And yeah, thanks for the time. It was really nice to speak with you, Kate. Have a good day. And I think we can find you on LinkedIn, right? If people have any
Yeah,
question or anything,
of course,
they
of
can reach
course.
out.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you, Thibault.
No problem. Thanks. Bye
Nice.
bye.